Hey guys, today I want to talk about the state of double special in the final shape. There has been a couple of changes and a couple of new weapons that I want to talk about that I think really affect the effectiveness of primary weapons as well as double special just for your general uses. So we're going to talk about that some in this video. The quick consensus is still that double special is really good. So let's go ahead and get into the details now. So the biggest thing that has really prompted me to make this video is that we have overall seen an overhaul in the scaling of everything in the game right now. And this change in scaling has made the game overall a little bit harder. Basically, we're taking more damage and we're dealing less damage. And I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing at all. However, I do think it has more implications than a lot of people realize than just the game being a little bit harder. Especially for the endgame players like the people doing low mans and speedruns. But that could be its own completely different video. In fact, I think Aegis even has one, and he's definitely much more of a speedrunner than I am, so you could check that out if you're interested. But getting back onto the topic of our weapon choices, basically, double special to me is even more powerful in final shape than it was before, because the game is just harder. Things need more damage to die, primaries are taking even longer to kill things, most special weapons are still one-shotting most of the things that they're effective against, stuff like wave frames against low-level red bars, pocket rockets against basically anything other than like a major or a boss, and even trace rifles have seen a very hefty damage buff that has actually made them at least pretty decent for doing ag clear. However, they're still mainly the utility kings, with sort of a side objective of being able to do some ag clear if you need it. Now, on top of the game just being overall scaled harder, we've also been given access to a couple of weapons that are extremely powerful for double special, and we have even more on the way that haven't been released yet. The first one is, I think, the obvious, and that is the kinetic slot pocket rocket sidearm, the Call. So we'll break down the Call really quickly before we move on. Basically, the Call has a lot of really good third column perks. I would go with either Slice or Demolitionist, or if you're not very good with double special and you're new to it, then you could run Lead from Gold for a little bit of a more forgiving ammo economy on the weapon. However, if you are good at doing double special, you really don't need Lead for Gold. It's super easy to maintain the ammo on sidearms. As for the fourth column, unfortunately damage perks aren't really that good. There's just not a lot of value in boosting the damage of rocket frame sidearms because they're not DPS weapons, they're used for killing majors and tougher adds, and it pretty much one-shots or two-shots everything that you're supposed to be shooting the gun with anyway, so damage perks don't really do all that much, but because literally they're our only choice here, I would go with either One for All or Golden Tricorn. I think those two would have the best uptime and very good damage buffs from them. Another big weapon I think we got was the Lost Signal. This is one I've talked about a couple times on the channel now, so I'm going to keep it pretty brief, but basically it is an ag clear beast, and it actually does the same damage as Witherhoard as long as you have Vorpal on it. That being said, it's important to remember that it cannot stick into enemies, and its duration is only long as Witherhoard's is when it's on the ground, so Witherhoard is still a better DPS choice if you have the exotic slot free. That being said, this gun is absolutely ridiculous for ag clear, and I'm not even using the Witherhoard roll to match damage with it. I'm using it purely for ag clear because it's so good at that. There's a ton of different perks you could go for on it, and I'll show them here. Basically, the ones that are fully highlighted blue are the ones I use, and the ones that have a little blue outline are ones I would consider to be usable if you prefer them. And I think the only thing I haven't really mentioned before other than that is that it generates an absolutely ridiculous amount of Darkness Transcendence energy. You just tag a few adds with it, and when they sit in it, you just fill up your entire bar in like less than a few seconds. It's ridiculous. I highly recommend the Lost Signal if you haven't given it a try, and remember that you can sort of wave it around to create basically 5 different Witherhoard pools at the cost of 1 ammo. It's very ammo efficient, it's very good at ag clear, and it has very good DPS for being an ag clear weapon. Not like DPS as in raid DPS, as in it can deal damage to majors at a decent rate despite being an ad clear specialized weapon. And one of the things that I think was really important about these kinetic weapons was that we also got an extremely powerful DPS energy slot weapon in the form of Still Hunt. While if you're on Hunter, this is the clear best weapon in the game, period. If you're on other characters, it is still extremely powerful. If we didn't get the Still Hunt, then it might have been less important that we got these super powerful kinetic weapons for double special loadouts with the Rocket and the Lost Signal, simply because we already had access to Indebted Kindness and would probably just continue to use things like Izanagi's Burden and Mountaintop. So I think that's enough for covering these new weapons. These were the two big weapons that really stood out to me. We're going to be getting the Martyr's Retribution and the Aberrant Action pretty soon, and those are both going to be very good energy slot double special weapons. So Definitely keep an eye out for those once they drop. Basically, they have good rolls and they are solar, which is very good. And remember, Aberrant Action is going to be a solar rocket sidearm, which is absolutely amazing. But let's go ahead and move into how to actually be good at double special, because I think that's something a lot of people need some help with. So you could sort of break running double special effectively down into a couple of different traits. The first trait is just using your ammo efficiently, shooting the right things with the right guns. If you have a big boss enemy who's super tanky, you should not just be unloading your ag clear weapon like your pocket rocket sidearm, or a trace rifle, or a wave frame, or even a primary if you are using a primary. Instead, you should be using some sort of burst damage weapon for majors, something like a mountaintop or Izanagi's, a shotgun, a fusion rifle, even some grenade launchers that aren't mountaintop. Because if you're using the wrong gun on the wrong kind of target, you're going to be wasting a ton of ammo, and obviously that's going to then cause you to start having ammo problems. Another thing you should do is try to get a lot of ad clear focus on your abilities. Especially with access to stuff like Prismatic, we have a lot of different ways to make very powerful ability loops. Some bracers are still super strong on Warlock as well. You've got the punch build on Hunter. You can even just do grapples with Basket of Hope and use the threaded spike. That's my favorite way to do it. And even Titans can punch stuff with knockout, I guess. Titans aren't very good, so I'm kind of just ignoring them for right now, but hopefully they get buffed in the future. I have seen that Bungie is apparently looking into ways to do that. But the end goal is just to have some sort of ability build that can handle ads effectively so that you can spend less ammo on them. In fact, if you have a build that is so effective at dealing with ads that you don't even need an effective ad clear like a wave frame, then you could even just run a rocket sidearm and a burst damage weapon and then use your abilities as your like mass ad clear. This is definitely my favorite way to run the game, and I think that it's probably the most efficient way to play right now, so I highly recommend giving it a go. Basically, you just run one of the pocket rocket sidearms and then a DPS special, so you could use the call and still hunt, and then use your abilities for your actual mobbing against masses of enemies. That being said, even if you don't have a build that can kill a ton of enemies, maybe you're playing on Stasis Hunter for the Shatter Skate and you just need to get around quickly and so you don't have the best ad clear, you could still just use something like a wave frame. You just have to be extra careful with your ammo and really make sure you're blowing up lots of enemies at once. Otherwise, you could just do something like an uncharged melee, or just use one of your abilities to take them out or something like that. This ultimately does just come down to game sense, and it's something you kind of pick up as a muscle memory once you do double special more often. The other big thing you can do is manage your mods appropriately. I see a lot of people that absolutely swear by primaries, say that they use surges all the time because they need more damage even against like ad clear. And as a double special user, it just makes me laugh because you don't need more damage on double special against anything that's not a boss. And this frees up our slots for things like, ammo mods, which then solves the problem of having to run double special in the first place in that you don't have a weapon with infinite ammo. And the beautiful thing about this is because you don't need 3 scavenger mods like you might need multiple surge mods to make a primary do anywhere near good enough damage. And this opens you up to run the orb benefit mods so you can do stuff like get extra abilities back on picking up orbs, get health back, and then also still have a scavenger mod. Now, in addition to running one scavenger mod on your boots for whatever weapon you're going to be running out of ammo of the most, I highly recommend running the Special Finisher mod. This is a 1 slot cost mod, it goes on your class item, and it is one of the most powerful individual mods in the game. Basically, if you get your 3 armor charges built up, you can then go Finisher an enemy and it will spawn a full-size special brick for you and all of your teammates. It's one of the best ways to provide support to your teammates, generating ammo. It's very cheap to be able to do, and it is super powerful for something like double special. It's also worth remembering that if you have a certain special weapon in your hand, and you would be picking up an odd number of ammo for your weapons, for example, if you were to be picking up 5 total ammo, you can actually pick which weapon gets the extra shot. Basically, whichever special weapon is in your hand whenever you pick up the brick is the one that gets the bigger half of the amount of ammo you were going to get. So if you were going to get 7 shots total, you would get 4 in the one in your hand and 3 in the one not in your hand. And I believe it always goes to your kinetic if your heavy is in your hand. I'm not totally sure about that. But if you hold the weapon you want to get the extra ammo, you'll pick up the bigger half, and sometimes that 1 ammo is all it takes to get through a DPS phase. And one last thing about managing your ammo when it comes to raid DPS specifically is I recommend having 2 sets of armor. Basically, I recommend having your piece that has either resistance mods or loosened blades if you're doing swords, and also your surge mods on your boots. And then I also recommend you have a set that gives you increased reserves to max out the reserves of your heavy weapon and anything you can do to your special weapon as well. And also scavengers for all of the weapons you're using on a separate pair of boots. So you finish a damage phase, and then if you didn't get a 1 phase, then you can basically switch over to this scavenger and reserve setup, pick up all the ammo you might have generated, and then switch back over to the surges and resistance mods before DPS. That way you're extra safe and you have your surge damage again, and you've picked up as much ammo as possible. Anyway, that's going to do it for the video. If you guys did make it to the end, thank you very much for watching the whole thing, and I would appreciate if you guys joined my Discord. That's something I've been really trying to get active, and we've been doing a pretty good job so far. We're over 200 members now. So if you're not already, make sure you guys join the Discord. I'll have the link in the description, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.